Hey, things are not what you think.
Yeah, there's always something you don't know.
Welcome to Joey's Real Talk.
老外大声说。
So let's first look at some statistics. Okay, so Taiwan's average work hours in a year is, as this statistics provided by OECD, it's looking at about 2,100 hours, 2104 to be exact. Now that may not mean too much to you, but we did a little math. That if you divide that by 52 weeks in a year and divide and then calculate it, it works out to be about 40 to 45 hours every week, which you think, oh, that doesn't sound like too much. Well, I think there are some statistics nuances in there. Now, let's compare to the other countries. Say if we compare to Mexico, average employee or laborers work around 2,200 hours. Costa Rica, one of the worst when it comes to laborers working overtime, is 2,230, okay? But if you compare to countries like Germany, we're looking at 1,371, and the Netherlands, 1,419. So we want to extrapolate from these information and also hear a little bit of opinion pieces from our guests. We've invited someone from Singapore, from Japan, and also from Germany and Belgium today.
Speaking of opinions, we already have, because we're on Facebook Live, so there are already people, Chen Aila, Liu Suling, I'm sorry if I'm saying this right, my Chinese is so bad, Carol Lee, they all agree that Taiwan is 过劳之岛, the island of overwork.
Okay.
So sad.
That's actually one of the headlines I think a couple of newspapers gave to Taiwan. 过劳之岛, the island of overworked laborers or overworked employees. Now, let's first look at some of the statistics. I dug deep into it, and I thought this is worth sharing. So, Japan is at 1719, surprising because we always thought that Japanese people work a lot, right? So we actually got two Japanese interviewees to share their thoughts, and I think there are some information, there's some misleading information in the numbers itself. Yes. Taiwan, let's look at Taiwan alone. Our GDP per capita is approximately, this is from the CIA website, and they probably have my cookies now that they know I visited the website.
And GDP per capita means the total amount of output divided by the number of people. So how much the country makes in total, the money per person, divided by the number of people.
Exactly.
Right.
So essentially productivity, that's what we're looking at.
Right.
Taiwan's productivity is pretty good. It's up there. It's about 47,000 per person compared to countries like Mexico, which is 18,000. That's quite a lot, all right? But compared to countries like Netherlands, which is at 50,000, that's, about the same level. Now, it's not surprising that, Taiwan probably has more GDP per capita considering our economy, our industries, whereas countries like Mexico or Costa Rica, I'm assuming a large portion of their economy is based on, say, manufacturing companies or, labor-based industries. However, having looked at that, Taiwan's work hours is still falls short, or actually it's a lot longer than Germany or Norway or Netherlands or Denmark. So given our high GDP per capita, we still have to work a lot of hours. In fact, there's one statistic that Taiwan trumps any other countries in, is the number or the amount.
Must you use the word Trump?
You need to avoid that word now.
I'll try to avoid that word.
It's loaded. It's a loaded word now.
Yes, you're right. The percentage of our full-time employees is probably the highest in the world. It's at 96.9.
Right, which means really high.
That means almost all of us have a full-time job.
Right.
Where if you look at countries like the Netherlands, they have only 61.5% of people holding full-time jobs. Okay, so keep that number in mind. Now let's go go into some of the questions that we're going to be asking our interviewees. But first, let's tell you about what countries our interviewees are from and what they do. This week, we luckily got one of the German journalists working here in Taiwan. His name is Klaus Bodenhagen, and he actually is a journalist who has this Twitter page and Facebook page called Taiwan Reporter, and he often reports on these sort of subjects, labor, working hours, and whatnot. So he actually gave us some recordings, and also we have another journalist from Belgium. We have an English teacher from South Korea, someone who works in media from Singapore. Actually, two of them who work in media from Singapore. We have a Japanese interviewee for in advertising, and another Japanese in heavy industry and traditional manufacturing. Okay, so is there anything you guys want to say before we play their first recordings?
So let's just define overwork.
Oh, yeah.
Shall we?
Good point.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're mainly talking about death by overwork, and that's usually results in the medical conditions of heart attacks, strokes, and that can be induced by stress and a poor diet, starvation diet. And then usually that results from like all night shifts or late night shifts or working on holidays or just working too many hours without a break in total.
There's one thing I forgot to say. There's also another set of statistics from the Bureau of Labor Insurance here in Taiwan. They say that on average, approximately every 11 days, one laborer dies from overexhaustion or overworked.
I think that's the statistic that everybody's kind of shocked by.
Right.
That's the attention grabber.
Now,
Yeah.
we have to say it's from the Bureau of Labor Insurance because how they obtain that statistics, we are not personally quite sure. Okay, so let's go to the first question is we ask our interviewees, what country are you from? How many hours a day do people usually work there? And let's see what their responses are right here on ICRT.
In general, in Germany, the 40-hour week was standard. But I think for a few decades now, most office workers, factory workers, they operate on something like a 38-hour work week. And the reason for these constant improvements is that in Germany, the labor unions are actually quite strong. The influence is waning a bit in recent years, but still, according to our legal system, the union representatives have a say in the company policy. So they sit on a table with the management and together they work out the regulations for the company, the payments, and definitely the way how many hours employees are supposed to work under which conditions.
I work as a journalist in Belgium editing a website about politics. I usually work between 10 and 12 hours a day, which is pretty long for Belgium or the UK where I'm actually from. How long people usually work really depends on the industry, but there are strong workers' protections in Belgium, so people can often go home after 8 hours, and many people take the afternoon off on Fridays. We also get a minimum 20 days paid leave a year, which is guaranteed by the law.
I'm an English teacher in South Korea now. I usually work 8 hours a day here, and my coworkers usually work 9 hours a day. We don't work overtime unless there's a big event coming.
The normal working hours per day for a full-time employee in Singapore is about 8 to 9 hours per day, depending on your company's regulation. And in fact, over here, we actually have a ruling with the Ministry of Manpower in Singapore that no full-time employees should exceed a total number of 44 working hours per week.
Hi, I'm Charmaine E from Kiss 92 in Singapore, and usually people here work for 6 to 8 hours on a normal day. We prep our trailers, our commercials for our program, whether it's before or after the show, or we're getting sound bites for our show. So that's usually how many hours we would work.
So compared to Japan, people in Singapore have less working hours. Just only maybe 9 to 6 p.m. and then you can leave on time, some of them. But I know some of the local companies, people stay in the office until midnight or even much later than that. So I think, again, this depends on the company.
I am from Japan. I think it really depends on the company or the department. Like sales or engineers work really hard from 8 to 8 is the average probably. Finance or human resource like back-end departments, like these people work from 8 to 5. So yeah, probably 2 or 3 hours difference a day.
Okay, so we play these sound bites in that order because I think there's one thing I really want to point out, that at the beginning, you have someone from Germany, in Belgium, and someone who is in Singapore saying, oh, we have pretty strong unions here. We have good workers' protection. And then you start to look at some of the countries that don't have that. So do you guys have any experiences, working, I think because like the Japanese interviewee said, I think you can tell he's Japanese, that he said that a lot of these are company specific, department specific, and of course it's based on industry, different industries.
Right.
So have you guys worked any elsewhere aside from ICRT? I got some experiences to share.
Yeah, well, before I was at ICRT, I was working for a cram school in Linkou.
Oh, there you go.
Which shall remain unnamed.
Which shall remain, yes. That was, without saying it too bluntly, that was a pretty rough year for me.
It's a euphemism.
Yeah, it was not fun. I was basically like 12 hours. I mean, not that I was working 12 hours, but I'd have to start my kindergarten class at 9 a.m. and then I'd finish my last lesson at like 9:40 p.m.
Oh my!
And and then I still, I want to go to the gym or I want to like make dinner or something, right? I wasn't working. I mean, I wasn't getting paid for 12 hours, but I was working for most of them because they expect you to mark the homework and paper,
all teachers
all
do
of that
this.
stuff.
Yeah.
But on some of those cram schools, you do get paid for it. The one that I was at, you do not.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of overtime.
Okay. And also, one of the interviewees mentioned back-end departments. There are different departments that they do different jobs. Their orientation is a bit different. Any experiences? You have friends who work in the back-end departments? Or?
Well, I know someone who works in sales. I mean, we all know someone who works in sales, and the sales departments have it pretty rough because they're expected to be available to their clients pretty much all the time. Yeah. Especially now with, Line, they're supposed to be available to answer questions. And if they don't return a person's message online, that's somehow a failing on their part. Actually, we have a listener, Liu Suling, again, and she was saying that a lot of it is like responsibility-based. Excuse me, it's responsibility-based, 责任制. And so that means you work from 8 to 5, but if, an order comes in for sales at 4, then you're expected to stay until it's handled, whenever that is.
Okay. So while we already made some comparison to Taiwanese work hours, the next question that we asked our interviewee is naturally, from your observation or experience, how do Taiwanese work hours compare to that of your home country or the one that you're comparing to? And let's see what they say about that.
I worked in Taiwan for around 3 years, and from what I saw, working hours are longer and working conditions aren't the best. I have friends whose bosses made them work during typhoon days, which can be really dangerous. The trouble with long working hours is you actually become less efficient because you're tired, you're less focused. In Belgium, it's nice because people really know how to relax. On Sundays, you see lots of walking groups, people taking photographs. Lots of people I know belong to choirs or other music groups. And the government even subsidizes after-work language and music lessons.
I hear a lot from Taiwanese office workers who tell me that in most companies it is still expected of you to show presence in the office and to stay at your desk for a long time, don't leave earlier than the boss, no matter if you actually have work to do or not. It gets boring, it gets on their nerves, it influences their quality of life, but we are still not at the point where a significant number of companies are actually changing it from the top down, I think. I think you can say this is a bit of a German mindset to value efficiency and productivity. So if you're working and you really put all your effort into that. So they expect you to really put your effort into the work, but then you do not sacrifice a lot of your free time doing overtime.
Taiwanese always have longer work hours than here. In Taiwan, teachers have lots of paperwork to do or have one-on-one communication with the parents. But in South Korea, here, they also have to do the same works, but they usually use an app or a website to finish all the works.
I've been working in Taiwan for 1.5 years, and then I know 3 Taiwanese companies, and I think it's much less. Like Japan is really behind in terms of gender equality. So Japanese guys work really hard, but Japanese women work less because a great amount of Japanese women work part-time. So in average, Japanese people work not much compared to Taiwan, but actually the full-time workers, they work really hard. I think it's way harder than Taiwanese people do.
Okay, so I think that last one we need to explain.
Yeah,
I'm
a jump in here. I'm a jump in here and clarify. So we checked with this because that leaves quite a big question mark, at least in my mind. So we checked with him and we wanted to clarify. What he was pointing out was that even though if you take all of the people in Japan, the working people in Japan, and you average their working hours, then it doesn't seem so bad. But actually, there's a big disparity, and he's pointing out that one of the issues is gender roles. It's a cultural construct and a societal construct, and it means like a lot of women are expected to work part-time or just forced to work part-time because society and culture expects them to also do a lot of the housework and do the child rearing, whereas men are forced into the construct of having to work full-time and provide enough for the family. So they're cut out of the child rearing and, being a part of the household. And so both genders are victims of that kind of, forced role.
Like social expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, that's just a concrete example of what we were saying before, where, it looks like some of these countries are working a lot longer hours than others, but really it's just when you average them out, it can be misleading for the numbers.
That's right. I actually went to the OECD website where the statistics can be found, and that's where I was kind of getting at. There are some misleading numbers and some nuances. For example, I read one of the statistics is that in Germany, 16% of people who are considered to be full-time employees, they actually work less than 20 hours a week, which is half of the expectation.
How does that work?
Maybe executives or maybe their job orientation just expects differently of them in terms of hours spent at work. So when you add it all together and divide by the same amount of people, of course, it's going to appear a lot less, right? So conversely, if you look at Taiwan, it could be some of the same problems. It could be that some people are working a lot more and some people slightly less, and it averages out to be 2,400 hours, but it could be higher. Japan's numbers surprised a lot of people, right? I mean, this report says that they work on average 1,700 hours. I really, from what I know about my Japanese friends, they don't work that little. So again, gender disparity could be, gender roles could be what the problem is here. Okay, so what do you think? For those of you watching this on Facebook Live or listening to us on the air, you can lend in your opinions. Go to our Facebook and just drop your comments there. We will have Nancy share them with us on the air. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back to finish the rest of our questions for this Real Talk segment talking about labor and overworked.
We're ICRT, and it's time for...
Yeah,
Your
I'm
nose
not.
is red.
We are watching to see if anything comes out, just in case.
Were you guys watching closely?
No.
It's coming. All right, 我们今天如果说大家刚好听到我们讲中文的部分的话，我们今天讨论的是在上个礼拜劳工保险局所发布的一个新闻，一个消息哦，就是说在欧洲有他们所谓的 OECD 的这个联盟，大概有35个国家。他们有整理一些数据，然后说，在台湾呢，看似乎我们的工时啊是在亚洲较长的，大概每年大概会有约2100个小时，就是每一个员工会大概要工作约2100个小时。那么在墨西哥当然就稍高了，例如说2200，新加坡更高2600-2700哈，日本居然是1700而已。所以我们今天想要了解一下这些数据到底是不是后面有其他的一些故事，然后当然比较欧洲的国家的话，亚洲的这个工时都稍微多一点，例如说德国才1300而已，然后芬兰不是芬兰，荷兰才1400，所以我们今天在我们的老外大声说，我邀请很多来自于欧洲的朋友们来跟我们分享一些他们的意见。如果说你现在在脸书看的话，希望你可以把这一集分享给你的朋友，我们今天希望可以这个参阅的人数不对，应该是观看的人数可以过300。可以过300，所以帮我们 push 一下 ，all right？ 那么也希望大家都可以听到我们今天老外大声说各方的这个老外朋友们的意见。Okay, so please do share this post right here. This is the 6th episode of ICRT's Real Talk. It seems like it's picking up some attention, and if you guys enjoy the show, if there's something you want to share with us, drop it right down here. 如果说你想要留言的话，就直接写在这边，然后跟我们分享你的工时多长，然后你觉得工作的时候会不会觉得压力很大 ？That's our next question, actually. Okay.
There's actually some Emily Young. She works as a chef. Do we have time, or should I stop talking?
You have time.
Okay. Emily Young works as a chef, and she says they usually work 10 to 12 hours. And the company says you get a 2-hour break in between the 2 shifts, but you only get to break if you finish prep for the next service.
Oh my.
So who knows when that's going to be? That's hard too. We didn't actually get any chefs.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah,
其实
that's rough.
厨师的工作或者是服务生的工作非常特别，因为他们有所谓的 split shift， 就是你中午的时候跟晚上的时候、晚餐的时候都要工作，中间就会有4个小时或3个小时的空档，通常大家就是休息一下，可是你也不能完全休息，因为很多餐厅是开整天的 ，right?
That's quite similar to what I was doing when I was working at the cram school, and again that time was spent preparing for my next classes or going out to buy supplies or something. So I mean, you're off work, you're not getting paid, but you're still doing something for the company.
Yeah, that's true. 哦，还有忘了跟大家讲，就是劳保局他们有一个很有趣的数据，讲说在台湾大概每11天就会有1位劳工过劳死哦，所以我们才要特别探讨说到底是不是这样子，大家的想法如何？那当然我知道我们可能针对的听众群是不一定是卡车司机，但是我知道我们有很多计程车司机是会听我们的节目的，所以如果说你现在如果是你是计程车司机，好像现在不应该看我们的 Facebook Live。如果说你想要跟我们分享一下你的工时的话，也可以。我常常跟我们就是我做的计程车司机聊天，他们大概也都是要工作10到16个小时才能够赚到足够的钱，所以工时也是非常长。
更别说如果不小心被开了一个罚单。
Oh yeah,
你那天就
Then you gotta be careful. 所以要知道怎么躲警察。我上次就是在闯单行道的时候呢，就有一位计程车司机开过去，他讲说：“后面有警察。”就是我觉得其实台湾人这点蛮可爱，就是都会提醒对方说怎么躲警察。
That's terrible.
2, 1. Here we go. We're good to go. Right back to the show.
I like it. I like it.
ICRT, where we've got it going on.
That's a take.
All right, welcome back to ICRT. We have Nancy and Philip right here. Hello.
Hello.
Hiya.
Today's Real Talk as we talk about Taiwan and potentially our laborers are being overworked. Work hours are pretty long, and we got lots of sound bites from friends all around the world, from European countries, from Southeast Asian countries, and hopefully we can extrapolate some truth from these statistics, whether or not Taiwanese employees
You
are
are really struggling with the word statistics
I
today.
hate that word. I hate
going on?
stats was my worst performed course.
Maybe
throughout.
you should just say stats. Stick with
I'll
that.
say stats. Or maybe every time I want to say it, I'll point at you guys and you guys can say it. Statistics.
And then Philip has to say it like he did in the intro.
老外大声说 All right. I want to point out. I want to point out
my
one
stress
thing.
levels are rising.
台湾有一个很这个知名的这个提神的饮料 I'm not going to say what it is. It has to do with ox, all right? And it's very popular to a point where at one point I was wondering, is it alcoholic? Why do people love it so much? It's not. It's really just vitamin drink. And a lot of truck drivers, cab drivers, or laborers, they drink it because they really need it. So maybe they have really long work hours, and it's just really hard to get through the day. So the next question we asked some of our interviewees is not only Taiwan's work hours high, but is the stress level okay, another word I can't pronounce. Is the stress level pretty high as well? And here is how they answered that question.
The stress level at work here in Singapore, I would say, is rather high because Singapore, as it is a very small country, and our population is actually multiplied by twice of its original size by foreigners. In a working environment, there is a very high tendency that you will actually have colleagues from other countries as well. And from where they're from, they have a lot of hands-on experience in school or at work already. Hence, I think it's quite stressful for Singaporeans to actually work in a very fast-paced environment or in a very dynamic environment because there are a lot of things that we want to catch up. It can be rather stressful.
I feel the stress level at work is much higher here because all of Koreans want to be the best, to be number one. I still get lots of pressure from Korean teachers and parents just because they don't want to lose.
It's difficult to tell how stressed people in Taiwan are, although long working hours can't help, I think. I used to be an English teacher there, and I felt there was way too much pressure on the children to pass various exams and go to a good university. Loads of kids go to normal school and then on to cram school in the evenings. When I was at school in the UK, we had a bit of homework, but also time to play with our friends. I think that's important.
When you have work to do, you need to finish it. What's missing in Germany is this feeling of I'm being forced to spend a lot of non-productive time just sitting around in the office, and that, of course, is also a kind of stress. So I think in this respect, the stress level of wasting your life is a little lower in Germany in general.
Okay, so why do we ask about stress? Because I personally think that it's pretty hard to actually, for lack of sleep to become fatal. So one thing that I thought may contribute to, the Bureau of Labor Insurance, their statistic about how they're on average every 11 days, one laborer dies from overwork or work exhaustion, I think is maybe cortisol, because your body tends to release this chemical when you're stressed, which is in animals is intended to trigger the fight or flight. Say increase your muscle reflex or your sense of smell so that you know how to react to danger. But this thing can't stay in the body for too long because it does suppress the immune system. It also decreases bone formation, so it's really bad for you. So stress could actually kill you.
There's also another facet we haven't really discussed, and that's mental illness. I mean, stress can obviously cause mental illness, and mental illness can lead to physical unhealthiness, of course, but there's also death by overwork from suicide as well.
Of course,
so that's an issue that also needs to be taken into account.
And I mean, this death by overwork, the clinical definition says, things that it affects the heart and your cardiovascular or something like that. It's what it says in that article. But that doesn't include all the other effects that haven't really been figured out on stress. So they say, somebody dies every 11 days, but it could be more than that because everybody's reaction to stress is also different.
Right, and death, I mean, the fatality doesn't have to be the only thing that you can assess stress by, right? I mean, it could be people's health is generally deteriorating, and that could be something that we haven't really picked up in all of our statistics that we've seen.
Good job.
Hey! Okay.
Not that it's a happy subject, but
right. And the last question we asked our interviewees is their work-life balance. Now, let's first ask you guys, what do you think is the ideal work-life balance? Because here at ICRT, I think we have a pretty good balance.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I wasn't. No. That wasn't like we didn't believe what he was saying. That was like, Philip, are you going to take it first, or am I going to take it first?
No need to explain.
Okay.
I don't think
too
our
much
boss is
backpedaling now.
listening.
All right. Okay. So I think for at least for people in the news department, I'm pretty happy with work-life balance. I also aside from work-life balance, I also have like a social life and alone time balance. Like if it's a 2-day weekend, I need 1 day to be alone at home. Okay.
Yeah, if you work
and
at
that's
ICRT,
important too for your health.
If you work here and you don't have a social life balance, it's kind of your fault, not the company's fault. That's for sure.
I'm sorry.
But what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I think definitely compared to my previous job, it's a lot nicer here. Like when I'm off work, and I can really do what I want with my own time. I feel like I have a life outside, and even. I've taken on new things that I never thought I would before.
Okay, but we both work in the news department.
There you go.
Yes.
I was going to say that.
Just pointing that out.
So some of the departments like marketing or sales, they do a lot of overtimes, every day. And that's something that here on this end, the programming end, we don't, or the news end, we don't always see.
Right.
So, of course, shout out to all of you from marketing and also to our producers actually standing right here, Mike and Yvonne. Okay, let's ask our interviewees what they think about work-life balance from their countries.
In Belgium, people have a good work-life balance. People work hard, but you often see them outside enjoying a beer in the evenings. Then Saturday's often for shopping and household chores, and Sunday is a family day. You work 5 days, and then you have a 2-day weekend.
Germans like to start work early. Some of them show up in the office at 8 in the morning, and then they can be home by 4:30 or 5 o'clock and still do some work in their garden. And I think this is the kind of work-life balance that a lot of the employees in Germany are valuing pretty highly.
In Taiwan, we always get line messages from managers from day to night, non-stop. But in South Korea, my manager is an Australian. He never bothers teacher within non-working hours. So I feel I really can enjoy my free time, my weekends. By the way, they work less on weekends than Taiwan. So, it means after 5 days working, I do have 2 days to relax.
I think an acceptable work-life balance for Singapore is knowing that on some working days you get time with your family, or on public holidays maybe you do get the time off. That's a good balance. Of course, the usual working hours is a normal.
If you work for
Okay, so everyone thinks of work-life balance differently. In terms of Philip, he's doing the work-life balance thing quite well. He's doodling on this piece of paper. He just drew a sad face. I guess that's
This has to do with the last comment coming up. Actually.
Okay.
You just stole my thunder.
Can you see it? Not really.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
Is there anything on Facebook?
Speaking of comments about Philip, oh God, I don't know how to say that word. 吴顿哲, I'm sorry, says, I like Philip's 老外大声说 so much. It's quite cute. Okay.
That's not the point here. Stay focused, Mr. Wu. Okay, so the ones who answered are from Singapore, are from Germany and Belgium. And I have to add one thing is I think the fact that a lot of people have to mandatorily stay in their office for certain hours, that can add a lot of stress to people.
Right, especially if you've actually finished your work, but you're physically expected to be there anyway.
Yeah,
doing nothing.
Because he keeps on repeating the point that, you know, like work-life balance really comes to, like, if you get work done, you can go home. I mean, if you have to do a job to make your next paycheck, fine, but at least let me finish the job and go home and do other things, right? That's what the job
I think it speaks volumes if you can see the fact that, like we said before, GDP per person, they have the same GDP per person as us, but they have like almost half that work hours. So I mean, if you can be effective and get out and do other things, then, you know, that might work back into your job the next time you're on, because, you know, you're less overworked, you can focus more, just as one of our interviewees said earlier.
That's true, very true. GDP per capita does not positively correlate with work hours all the time. You know, it could be different way to operate your companies. Okay, the last bits are from the two Japanese interviewees, and I should feel bad about this, but I almost thought it was kind of funny that when I asked the Japanese about their work-life balance, they don't really know how to even answer that question.
And that's why I drew this sad face.
It is very sad. So let's give this one a listen.
If you work for a local company in Japan, I think only time you can take some days off without feeling hesitation toward your colleagues or your boss might be 2 times a year.
This one is also a hard question. I don't have any data or evidence. Just my feeling is that probably it's around 60 to 70 hours, like extra working hours, overtime hours per month. It's too much if it's over 50 or 60.
Yeah, there you go. See, I don't even know how they answer or why they answer the questions that way. But the question I gave them was pretty simple. You know, like what is the acceptable work-life balance from your country of origin? And the first guy said you can probably only take 2 days off, or two
times off a year without feeling guilty, or without your colleagues resenting it.
And the other guy just said, you know, there's usually 60 to 70 hours overtime a week, and then 50 to 60 is a bit much, or a month, excuse me. So yeah, I think there's when we see in the stats that the Japanese average laborers work approximately 1,700 hours.
It's probably not true, because they clearly feel a lot more stressed about their work.
I think it's a misleading figure. Yes. So what do you guys think after our Real Talk segment today? Do share more comments with us on the ICRT Facebook Live, and also you can, I guess, approach any one of us through our midday email, midday@icrt.com.tw. Next week, we're going to be asking for all your comments, and you could record something and send it to us, and maybe we can share it on the air. All right, that's it for today. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Philip, for joining us.
Hello, handsome and gorgeous. Thank you for watching our video. If you like more general shenanigans or artist interviews, please make sure you click to the next video, but also make sure you subscribe to us by pressing the bell button down here, because we like to tell you more about fun stuff coming up.